Welcome to Missionary Roundtable with your host, Kale Horvath.
Hey guys, welcome back to Missionary Roundtable. My name is Kale Horvath. I'm your host, and I'm excited for you guys to be joining us again this week as we have another conversation with a missionary about the Great Commission and world missions that God has given the church to do in this day and age. And I hope you've been joining us all summer as we've been talking to different missionaries and pastors. It's been a really good second season. If you haven't listened up to this point, I encourage you to go back and listen to some other episodes. And like I said, this is the second season, so you can also go back and listen to the first season of Missionary Roundtable, where we're just being flies on the wall and listening to some conversation by veteran missionaries and pastors who have been serving the Lord and being a part of the Great Commission and discipleship for years and years of their life. And it's been really beneficial to me as the host, and I hope to you as well. Today, I'm incredibly excited to tell you guys that we did it. We got Mickey Cofer back. Mickey was on the show in the first season and was really, I know a lot of people's, one of their favorite episodes and mine too. Not dissing on any of the other guys we had. Mickey is he's just a delight to talk to and wonderful to hear from his wisdom and experience. And we are excited to have him back. I think it was episode 7 of the first season, if you guys want to go back and listen to that if you haven't. But Mickey, thank you so much for making time in your busy schedule to join us again.
Thank you, brother. Me too.
I'm super excited to do this. I know that you've been busy, and so I'm excited that you can find a little bit of time. You just got back to Mongolia, right? So you spent a little bit of time in the States with COVID and everything. I think it got you stuck stateside. Is that right?
You're right. Yep, sure did. Yeah, so it's good to be back.
Oh, I'm sure.
We're hard at it.
But you married off another one of your kids, so life is just rolling
all
right
married.
along.
Yeah,
all of them.
Yep.
How many kids do you have, Mickey?
4: Judah, Jonah, Jesse, and Jazaniah.
Oh, all J's. There you go. Oh, you've got a Judah too. My little son's name is Judah. That's awesome.
Oh, nice.
I
have some grandchildren. That's Geneva, Genesis, Javen, and Genesis, and Jude. They're all J's too.
So they're carrying on the family tradition here of the Juz. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man, that is really cool. So are your kids, I'm just curious now, and by the way, people, just so you know, I have zero agenda for this episode. It's more ask Mickey questions and let him tell stories. That the name of this episode by the time we're done might just be Story Time with Mickey. I'm not sure. But just thinking about it, so how old are your kids? So I think the one you said you just married off is 22. Is that right?
Right. And my daughter's 25. Jesse, and then Jonah's 27, and Judah's 29.
Okay. And are they all like you and your wife too? Are they like artists and craftsmen and wilderness men?
Yeah, I would say they are.
That's awesome. So, man, that would be an interesting family to spend a day with. You guys are probably all super creative and
we have fun.
You guys should probably have one of those like reality TV shows like Duck Dynasty or something. Just spend a week with the Cofer family,
No, we have fun.
That's awesome. Now, in the last episode, last season, when I was talking to you, that was so good for me, man. I've listened to that episode again since I've been on the field, and you gave me a little piece of advice. You probably don't even remember this, but it struck me then, and it's stayed with me ever since. You were telling, probably towards the end of the episode, I don't know, about when you landed on the field, and you were telling the story about going and digging a toilet. That was a great story. Digging the outhouse and just getting things started. And you told me it was great advice. I'm going to butcher the quote, but basically you said something to the effect of, Kale, when you get to the field, just live life like a Christian, and ministry will happen because you're a Christian. And it's such simple advice, but it just struck me because when you get on the field, and I can speak from experience now, we arrived on the field last December, so we've been here 7 or 8 months now. You feel so overwhelmed because there's so much to do. there's, you're picturing 5 years in the future when you've got a ministry and a church and you speak the language, and I'm picturing all those things that God gave me a burden and a glimpse of. But you get on the field finally. You've been working for years to get to that point, deputation, and it's overwhelming. I was almost paralyzed. Like, what do I do first? And I just remembered,
Right.
Mickey, your advice, like, Kale, just get on the field and just live. You're a Christian. Ministry will start. And man, that was huge
Right.
for me. And I can attest to that being true and just living intentionally. And we've been able to meet with people. Obviously, we're studying the language every day, but just meet with people and build relationships with people just by praying, spending time with the Lord, and asking Him to bring people to us. And we actually got, because COVID restrictions have been lifting slowly, we got a chance to like go on vacation to Lake Balaton here
Oh,
in Hungary,
nice.
just spend a weekend away at the lake. And my wife made friends with a lady who could speak a little bit of English. Her son came up and was playing with Judah on the beach, and they just started talking, and they hung out and talked for hours. And by the time, it was time to like go inside and they were leaving for the day, she like wanted to make sure to get Brooke's cell phone. Like, hey, maybe we could catch up
Oh,
sometime when I'm in
good.
Budapest. And like just things that
Yeah.
don't happen unless you're intentionally, trying to build relationships with
Yeah,
people. And
that's
so
totally being a missionary.
just long story short, thank you for that advice, Mickey. That has been a huge weightlifter, taking the burden off the shoulders of like, just get to the field and focus on living like a Christian, and then let God get things started.
That's right. That's right. Don't force it. Have patience, and you know, not being a deadbeat, of course, or
Yeah, of
or
course.
not trying, just resting. I'm saying, don't overstress and overwork it. Just make friends. Find
Yeah.
people. That's what you're there for,
Mm-hmm.
and
Because
that people
if
who
you
you must have in your home.
Yeah, yeah, and having people in your house too, for sure. So like in our culture here, which every culture is different, of course, but in our culture, it's not like maybe the Latin America culture to where you move somewhere and everybody in your building or your area wants to have dinner at your house and meet you. It's like it's funny, they're actually a lot just like me. They're not standoffish. They're just kind of like, "Hey, I don't know you, so
Exactly.
why are you trying to talk to me?" So you just got to gain their trust and respect. And so if you're trying to force things, they will sense your insincerity. They will be like, you want something from me,
You're
like you have
right.
to
You're
gain
right.
that
Yeah.
friendship, like on a very sincere level.
Right. And the way you went to the lake for the weekend and you met somebody, it was very natural. And that's like when we came here and we're especially having children and all their children, they're making friends a lot faster than we are. And then
Mm-hmm.
we're becoming friends with their parents. And that's what I mean. It's such a natural way to get in people's lives, by not just locking yourself up in your house or your hut or your whatever. You got to get out and you got to meet the neighbors, and in a natural way, like
Mm-hmm.
going to the lake. That was just awesome. That's how it works. And you don't want to lose that lady. You want to
Yeah, right.
get in contact with her. Yeah.
And even some of the friends that we've made that I've been able to, some study the Bible with already, which is amazing. But others,
Oh,
just
that is awesome.
slowly building a relationship as naturally as possible, because I don't want to have an ulterior motive. I guess as a Christian, you
Right.
always have an ulterior motive. You want everyone to go to heaven, but, I don't want it to seem
Right.
like I'm a salesman. Like, hey, do you want to be a part of my Ponzi scheme pyramid business? Like, I'm not making friends just to sell you something.
Yeah, and that's what I learned when I became a missionary is like, wow, this is no different than being at home.
Mm,
You're dealing like when I'm at home, when we're in our local church and visitors come, we say, hey, you want to go to dinner? And, you are being intentional and not phony, but you are making friends, you're seeing the needs, and you are being warm and natural. And it's no different to me than being in America, being in Mongolia, being in Hungary. You're a believer. And that's what I meant last time, I think, when we were talking, was that, you kind of have to wait on ministry, and it evolves and it happens, and you have to have patience, and
mm.
you're seeking the Lord, a lot of prayer time and a lot of, just dealing with your own self. Like with me, people, when we first moved here, everybody's coming over for tea, and it's like they want to sit there and talk a little while. And I'm like, okay, I'm like wanting to slip out the back door and go to work because
Yeah.
I have so much work to do. And so I had to really make myself not just go to work, but I would get to work, but it was like I had to give people that time, It's like when we first settled in Mongolia, we started an art gallery in the city, and we moved out into our village, and we put our hut up, our ger. It's like a yurt, a felt canvas tent up in kind of in the middle of nowhere in the woods. And it's like, after a while, I'm like, the Lord's dealing with me. Yeah. So where's the people? you didn't move into around the people. You moved as far away from the people as you could get. Kind of, because I'm that kind of country kind of boy, and it's like, the Lord had to deal with me. It's interesting because we're still who we are, just because we shift countries. But you still have to put yourself in the right place and following the Lord, and then get out of your comfort zone and get in people's lives.
Yeah. No, that's a good point too. So like Hungary is really cool for me personally in a lot of ways, because like my family, my dad's side of the family is Hungarian, so it's like there's this like extra draw that like my ancestors are from here, and but also there's so many things about Hungary that weirdly are like Ohio back in America, which is, I'm an Ohio boy. And it's like the size of the country is about the size of Ohio, and the weather's similar, and the terrain, the land is similar. And, obviously apart from it being a foreign country and they speak a different language, but like when we bought a car back in June finally, so that we could, we travel by public transportation in the city, but so we could leave and go other cities and visit people easier. And so we were able to drive to the lake, and it's about an hour and a half, 2 hours away from Budapest. That was our first time getting on the highway and like leaving the city a couple hours on our own. And that just, those are the little things that make you feel more at home. Like, wow, we're going on a road trip because we live here. We're not just tourists, but man, getting on the highway, the highway felt like Ohio. We passed a KFC and a Shell gas station. I'm like, where am I on deputation right now? Like, where am I at? But visiting, seeing those smaller towns, getting outside the city, I was like, man, this is what I like. Because I grew up in a little town, and if it were up to me, we would go live in some little 5,000, 10,000 person city and just kind of be away from all the stuff. But like you said, it's like, but where are all the people at, man? And at this stage in your ministry, where do you need to be? You need to be in the capital,
right? At
least for now, but that's a really good point, though, that you make.
Right. Yeah. It's exciting. When we first were talking about where we were going to settle in Mongolia, the Lord was really, I felt like, showing me the area. But some pastors started talking to me about, before you go to that area, you should go to the capital city, and get your language started and just figure out some government and just figure out how to live, how to buy and sell and
culture,
work on your visas, and just learn the ropes, because I wanted to go straight out to kind of the middle of nowhere, our village that we've been studying and looking at for a couple of years. So anyhow, we obeyed those pastors and just went to the city, and it was a good thing. And that's how we really started. That's how we got our visa. Actually, we came into the city, and we already had talked to the American Embassy and was asking about how can we come in to this country and do business. They were like, well, are you a missionary? I said, yes.
First question.
Yeah. I said, well, you just need to be honest. You need to be truth. I mean, if you're going to come in here and do business, you need to do business. Don't come in here and say you're going to do business and not do it. They know better. People know better than that. Be honest. And that was good advice. So when we landed, we hung out in the city for about 10 months. And then we started an art gallery, found a bunch of artists and put their work on consignment, rented a little room.
Oh, wow. wow.
Fixed it up, yeah, and started a little art gallery. Then we got our visas through that, and then we moved out into the countryside, about 24-hour drive
Oh, phew.
off
I
road.
thought you were going to say 20, 25 minutes, 24-hour drive. Okay.
Yeah, off road and getting lost, can't find the road, following the telephone poles, just way out in the middle of
Real
nowhere
Mickey
kind of
Cofer
place.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, we loved it. But so we settled in there, and then we'd drive back. We could catch a flight about 3 hours away, 2 hours away. Actually, at that point, it was 3 hours away. Now we have a little bit of a road in here. So anyhow, and we'd fly back and buy art and we had another missionary. We were able to give him a visa to run the gallery while we went to our village. And then when we came to our village, we asked our governor, hey, can we work with your artist here? Can we have a little gallery there? We'd like to work with the artist and train them and show them some things that foreigners would like. So we started working with that. And that's how we got our visa and how we got all these natural contacts with, we're artists. I'm a potter. My wife's a painter. We had a little pottery business in America called Vessels of Honor. So basically that was how we came in, kind of what we call strategic endeavors. Like, how do you get in to a semi-closed country? Well, you can do business. And what do you do naturally? What is your talent? What's natural for you? What can you talk about? What can you do? And it wasn't really to make money. It was to get a visa and to do our work and to watch the Lord use us in our talent. And so all our first contacts were artists and people surrounded by that. So it was really a natural way for us to come in.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then, so along those lines too, let's just roll with, you're starting in ministry. I'd love to hear more about, you land on the field, spend that first year. And so you're meeting all these people out of necessity, right? So you're starting that business. And for me, it was like, language school, like you're meeting people because you have to at some level. And like,
right.
Your barber, whatever it is. And so for me, it's like, well, I just, write that person's name in my prayer journal, and like that's who I'm praying for. And before you know it, you've got 2 or 3 dozen names of real people that like it's at some level that you're praying for every day. And it just amazed me how fast that prayer journal filled up on a day, just by meeting people that I didn't have to try to meet. It was just through natural things that I have to do every day.
That's what I'm saying. That's so right, so good. Natural, easy. You're not like, I don't know, knocking on doors saying, I want to tell you about Jesus. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's illegal for one thing, basically.
Well, in Mongolia.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's there's somewhat freedom of religion and there's not. So it's like, if it's natural and you're making a friend and you go out to lunch and they ask you who you are and what you're doing, and, you end up telling them who you are, and then as the relationship builds, you tell them more about the Lord. And so it's just I like that natural. It's easier for me.
Yeah, especially for us guys, at least, I'm not putting you in this category, but for me, like, I'm not like the boldest evangelist in the world. Like I have to pray for God to give me that boldness and courage, because I'm just not, I don't know, I might come off outgoing, but I'm not the guy who just goes out and it's like grabs the random person like, hey man, let me tell you about something that'll change your life. Like, that's not me.
Right. Now, I wish I was more like that. My wife wins more souls than I do. She'll when we were in the city, a few times she'll get the street kids up and, a half a dozen of them and take them. She won't give them money, but she'll take them into a restaurant and make those guys mad. But the kids, feed them a nice meal and talk with them and tell them about the Lord. And she's better. She's a better witness than I am.
But it is amazing though, like when you just start building relationships with people naturally. So like a lot of the guys that I've met here, so they'll find out what I do either naturally or they'll ask me or whatever. And then they'll start asking me questions. Like like all I'm doing is praying every day and studying and working on language and stuff. And then I've got people that I'm meeting, and it's like half the time I don't even have to I don't have to ask them the transition question of like, so brother, what do you think happens after you die? Like I don't have to ask that. It's like they're asking me. So like, what does a missionary do? What do you know? And I'm like,
that's exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, I think people could read it wrong, but you see what I'm saying. It's just very natural, and people are interested in who are you?
Yeah.
And why are you here? And because you're a foreigner, you have this interest, you're interesting, and they want to ask questions. And then once you get settled in, and, I remember in our village, just keeping our grass mowed and keeping things tidy and all, people were interested in that. And they would come over and talk to us, and they would say something about it. Oh, this is so nice grass, or something about this is also, and they seen the work, they seen the tidiness, and I don't know, it just, it was inviting to them. So that was interesting. A lot of little, just natural ways that you are interesting, and it causes them to ask you questions. And then, when you just tell who you are in your testimony, it's not like you're even trying to, you are trying to witness to them, of course, but I mean, it's just a natural way. What's the Lord's done for you and why you're here? I'm just a simple country boy, I'd always tell them. And, and I was in church one day, and I'd been praying about, Lord, I'm almost 40 years old. My life is half over. Is there anything you want me to do? And just how the Lord dealt with my heart about going to Mongolia. And I would tell him, I had to look on the map. Where's Mongolia? And just telling them that how the Lord brought me there, and what he's done for me, and who he is. And it just comes out in a natural way, and they're just so interested, and they don't feel on the spot so much, but the Lord, brings them back, and we become friends, and it just naturally happens, kind of like even having people over, and we would thank the Lord for our food.
Yeah.
And then I might have told you last time, then a guy told me, hey, I'm thanking the Lord for my food every night when I eat. And, and that was very exciting.
Yeah.
Just naturally, not that is my, was my plan. It's just, I'm like you. It's not like I'm just to go up to a guy and say, hey, let me tell you about Jesus. I wish I was better at that, but I'm better at making friends and it coming out. And but not making friends and then it coming out a year later.
Right.
I want to bring it up the first or second time a little bit, because that is why I'm here. This is who I am. I mean, and it's natural for me to say something about the Lord, because we're all about the Lord,
Right.
All of us believers are.
And if people are going to get close enough to where they notice your Christian life and it's different, or you're just modeling for them and they're curious, like you have to like let them get close enough, or you have to like you said, just having people over to your house. And in some cultures that is kind of weird. Like even like our landlady is super sweet, super nice, and the first couple of months she was over a lot, because we needed help with certain things, and it was like every time she came by we had someone else in our house, and she looked at me and she's like, do you know all these people? Like how it was like she was almost intrigued, like how are you getting like you just moved here, how are Hungarians coming into your home already? Like that's not normal. That's so like cool, we don't make friends with like strangers that quick. And so even just getting to share with her, like that was, but like you have to be intentional about letting them in.
Yes. It's a huge witness. Yeah.
What was so we got to talk about prayer, man, because that was in the last episode. It was just such a blessing for me and so many people to hear you talk about prayer. But specifically in regards to you getting to the field and, you're starting to build these relationships and you're praying about getting ministry started. What was that like? How did you have a strategy, or was it just every day you pouring before the Lord what you needed for that day? How'd you go about praying for getting the ministry started those first couple years?
Is that before coming to the field?
No. Once you got there and it's like, this is the reality now. and like
Yeah,
I want to get
yeah,
to here, but I'm starting with step one because my prayers have been
yeah,
so desperate, like not desperate in like a bad way, but
yeah.
just like, Lord, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I need you to do this thing,
Dependent.
you know?
Yeah,
Yeah, dependent. That's a better
desperately
word.
dependent. Yeah, that's me. And it's very much, um, wow. So basically, when we got here, it's more or less, okay, it's like, wow, woe is me. This is different smells. This is
Right.
different driving. This is like so interesting, so foreign. And I'm the foreigner. And it's like, wow, patience, I think patience then and patience now, I think that's a real key for a missionary is just you're resting in your calling and you're resting in those first leadings of the Lord in life and salvation in life. It's just like we look to the cross for forgiveness, and we look how the Lord has dealt with us in our devotions and in our callings and in our in foundational truths. It's always there, whether you're at home or abroad or whatever. You're resting in the Lord to keep going, and you're always thinking about future joy. And so I think patience is a real key to rest in that. But as far as getting going, what was the main? Ask me the question again.
What was your prayer life like in those first couple of years when you're praying about getting things going? And because for me, it's like
Right.
I tend to have the personality, the Martha personality rather than the Mary. Like I need to go out and
Yeah, yeah,
go
yeah,
work. And
yeah,
God's
yeah.
just
Me
been
too.
showing me like just spend time at my feet, man.
Well, and I think that's why I say, to remember, I have to remember my calling, that those fundamental foundational truths and the truths when the Lord dealt with my heart. I'm about being a missionary. I'm almost 40 and I'm just this basic working guy, and the Lord's dealing with me, and I'm praying. And I might have told you about the night of praying, and the Lord's given me some verses about the widow with the oil and how that she had nothing and she's asking the Lord. And basically what came to my mind in my prayer before I went to the field was church planting. Missionaries start churches, of course. You're making disciples, and the Lord builds his church. So church planting is the key. That's the number one thing, making disciples.
Sure.
Then you have to train those people. So leadership training. So that's what I thought of. And that's what I've written down and has been my foundations, my 4 foundations of the ministry is church planting, leadership training, gospel publishing. I've been a printer at the Fellowship Track League for years, and then just seeing what the printed page means in the world and in history. Gospel publishing, my prayer was, Lord, Moses's song, has always stuck out to me. He wanted to saturate the ground with the doctrine, with God's doctrine. And I just wanted to take that on. Lord, I want to saturate Mongolia with sound doctrine, with gospel truth. So gospel publishing is going to be a big part of that. And then strategic endeavors. I'm a potter. My wife's a painter, and we have done art business before we were called to missions. Basically, we made pottery and sold it to a bunch of galleries wholesale. So I thought, okay, that's going to be a part of me getting in there and a part of what I should train people how to go. That developed though. So, but basically there was 4 foundational things: church planning, leadership training, gospel publishing, and strategic endeavors. So that out of the coming into the city, like the strategic endeavors as a potter and a painter, we started into the art gallery. I told you, opened a little art gallery, just a little small room, and put another missionary in it, made all these friends out of these artists, and got our visas, and we moved away, and we started a little company called, it's a nonprofit organization called Local Craftsmen. So we got our visas through a little company. We called it Vessels of Honor, and we have our visas. We can do art and sell it. So we're training artists. But when we came to our village, we started a nonprofit organization called Local Craftsmen. So we'd have purpose and reason wherever we're at when the government asks us and looks at us. And so we started training about 12 artists that were interested in and working with them in different, in some woodworking and clay work and wool. We have long-haired yaks that are very, and camels, long-haired sheep and goats and cashmere. So we got spinning wheels and carders and tried to start working with that, making yarn. And so that type of thing. And that just gives you all this group of people that, this natural contacts. And that's how the Lord has led us. So when we started the church, basically we started to head into a story. Let me tell you a little about the church there. So basically we got here and I've told you some stories there, and we basically started having some people over, some couples over, and began to teach them the Bible. Like 3:00 every day, we would start teaching them, having a Bible study. So I was using firm foundations, where you're taking them from Genesis to Revelation, basically from, chronological teaching.
Oh, okay.
From creation to Christ.
Creation
That's
to
what I'm
Christ.
looking for.
Yeah. Right
From
on.
creation to Christ. So you start out with who is God?
Yeah. And you're just working your way through the Old Testament.
You work your way to Christ, God becoming a man.
Yeah.
So I start in that. I start teaching, and it's taking me months, and I'm almost getting to Christ, all through the winter. And I'm fixing to tell them that God is going to become a man. Now they've seen all the case. Yeah. So they've seen all the prophecies, and they know it's going to happen. And so basically, I told them next Sunday we're going to talk about God becoming a man. I'm going to introduce Jesus to them. And so my boys were just finishing school and homeschool, and I was going to take them out for a 3 or 4 days horse trek, back in the mountains. So we got back in the mountains, and my middle son, we're all on horses and we're kind of racing and we're going all over the place. And then from out of nowhere comes a dog and chases my one son. He's getting off of his horse, and the dog shoots out of the wood and jumps the horse, scares the horse, and the horse took off. My son's foot was still in the stirrup. Wow. So he drug him for, a long way.
I think I remember this, actually. This was years ago, right?
Yeah, this was probably, at least, I don't know, 15, 16 years ago.
I feel like I remember our church maybe praying for that. Okay. Go ahead. I don't want to interrupt the story.
Yeah. So basically, he was drugged by the horse, 50 yards. And the horse kicked him in the jaw, broke his jaw. And he was unconscious by the time I got to him. Thank God the saddle broke. And, so he's unconscious. We get him. It took us 40 hours to get him to the city and then to Korea. We were able to get him into South Korea. So he's unconscious for a few weeks. But meanwhile, we left our church, our village, on an emergency flight, and then we disappeared. So I told the church, we'll Sunday I'm going to tell you about Christ, and then we disappeared. So my son's hurt. He's in an accident, and we don't return back to the village till 3 months later. Wow. And so when I come back, we have Jonah and Trina were still in. I sent them to America for rehab and this kind of thing. He came through it, and he's fine today, but he was seriously injured. Kind of like broke the main axons, the nerves in the brain, and just like shaking baby syndrome kind of thing. Wow. So, but it all grew back, and he's fine, normal now. So basically, they didn't hear the gospel, and when I came back, I gave them the gospel, for the first time, and 21 of those people got saved. Wow. And it was
after amazing. A 3-month pause.
Yeah, it's after a 3 months. So it's so interesting. But out of that grew the church. Out of Jonah's accident, the church started. But it also so we're in South Korea, and pastors are calling, and they're asking about the ministry, and they're asking about Jonah. And then I had another pastor that I had been talking to that was a printer, or he had printed Bibles, Bearing Precious Seed, for years, and First Bible International. And he's asking me, and we've been praying and talking about getting starting a translation, getting some printing done, starting a print shop. Anyhow, he said, brothers, there's a bunch of men asking me about your ministry. And he said, I think the Lord's going to start your printing ministry, through this accident, because it's just making a lot of people aware. And sure enough, it did, and I was really seeking the Lord and asking the Lord, is there anything I'm missing, and I'm just praying because here's my son, he's about to die, and these things are happening. Of course, you're seeking the Lord. And I was reading in John 6, and the Lord really dealt with my heart that, through this accident, many are going to be fed. I was looking at the boy with the few loaves, and the Lord was just really dealing with my heart and showing me some scriptures. I won't get into that, but it's basically simple. From that scripture, I thought, wow, the Lord's going to feed many people through Jonah's accident. So I just thought, wonder what that's all about. And then this pastor calls me, and he's talking about getting the printing ministry going. So out of that starts the printing ministry. Several $100,000 was given for the presses. And then we eventually started the translation, which we're still working on the translation. We're about a year and a half out, and we'll have the whole Bible translated. So it's been about 15 years we've been working on this translation.
Wow, that's amazing. In
Mongolian.
Awesome.
We have a whole team in the city. We work with the Trinitarian Bible Society, and they fund a lot of it and check all our work, and we're going through them. And so just tremendous help, a lot of help. So we have about 5 Mongolians on staff, and then Dr. Charles Keene and some other men in America that help us, and men in Europe, in London, that help us. So it's very exciting. So the printing ministry started, the church started. You would never think, I would have never thought to plan that, the Lord would use something like that.
Did your faith waver at all during that 3-month time period where, during the pause, whenever, you're with your son? Like, what was your walk with the Lord like?
Well, it was, it's so funny because my mom called me. She said, Mickey, people here in America are saying the devil's fighting you and the Lord's chastening you. He said, I've heard all kinds of stuff. I said, Mom, I need chastening always. The devil's fighting. And she had 4 or 5 things. I wish I could remember what it was, but it's so funny. It's just like, of course, Mom, it's all the above. But basically it's, of course, the Lord's working and the wicked one's fighting. And
that's a given.
Of course, we grew, and everything is happening. All those things are happening. Of course, I need chastening. Of course, we need training, and it's all happening. It's all good. And when I look at it now, that's why I can say, wow, the ministry started out of this, the church started out of this, and it just really was a very close time with the Lord. It was most exciting time. It's not exciting your son's hurt, but whenever you're in those situations, the grace of the Lord is so amazing, so real. And I'll tell you, I never experienced anything like in South Korea. The people, so when I landed, let me tell you a little funny one. So we're in the hospital. We're in the hospital in Mongolia, and they can't get the IV in, and his veins are kind of collapsing. They couldn't get the IV in, and this and that's happening. And they're kind of telling me he's not going to make it. And, it's just a bad situation. And then this real slick guy comes in he's all this perfect looking guy, and he comes in, he's kind of dark skinned, his hair's waved back, and he comes in and he just takes over, and he just walks right over there, puts the IV in. He's the emergency flight guy, So he comes in on this jet, and he lands, and he walks in, puts the IV in, says, let's get him lit, let's load him up, let's do this and that.
Like, step back, I got this.
Yeah, he did. And it was like everybody was like amazed, and he was just in control. And then so he reaches over and he says, here, we got to sign this paper. And he signs his name, Jesus. And I said, are you serious? He said, yep, that's my name, Jesus. He said, I save people every day.
Oh,
he
man.
said, I've been on this jet. He said, I've been on this jet for 3 years. Only time I get off is to walk in, pick the person up and put them on the jet.
Wow.
He said, he's amazing. But anyhow, so there was just one story after another like that. We're in Korea. And so that jet lands, and this doctor comes walking up. And so he hands me $1,000 and he says, it's expensive here. Let me help you. And then there's like 7 or 8 Korean young people that are doctors and nurses, and they come up and they take him and this and that. And so the next day we're in there, and the doctor says, so how did you know that doctor that met you at the airport? I heard that he met you there and gave you $1,000. How did you know him? I said, I don't know who he is. Said, well, he's the head surgeon and the head of this big hospital over there. He says, he's a great Christian man. He writes all these theological books. It's just going on and on. I don't know. I never seen him. I never knew who he was, but then he started visiting us. And so we had just people coming to visit us that we never met before.
So the Lord was just encouraging you even throughout the tragedy.
Oh, yeah. And it was just a God sent. And it was, so we all grew, and the church started and the printing started. And basically, the Lord used that, in our lives. And so, yeah, it's like, accidents. I don't know. What do you think about an accident? That somebody could get drugged or kicked by a horse anywhere, Sure. It just happened with us, and it worked in the minute. So it worked, there's so many stories I could tell you, but I'll stop on that,
Well, it is amazing though, how is it, like you said though, that you experience God's grace more personally and more closely. It's more real when you're going through the hard times. So it's like, even though the time is really hard, whatever circumstance you're going through, it's, if you're still getting in the Word and praying, your prayers become more desperate, but then you feel God more. I don't know, from my experience, it seems that way.
Yes, totally.
Especially as a missionary on the field, where life is it can just be hard on any given day for any number of reasons.
Exactly. That's so true. And, and the ministry has grown, the translation and so many things has happened. And that same pastor, I wanted to tell you another one, since you wanted to hear a few stories.
Story time, please. Let's go.
So, printing and translating, it's such major warfare spiritually in that realm, in that type of ministry. But basically, this pastor I was telling you about that helped us start the ministry, Dr. Charles Keene, he called and he said, I have a burden to get the Gospel of Mark in a gospel in every home in Mongolia. I said, okay, let's do it, because that's just what I say, especially to this brother. I say, okay, let's do it. And because the Lord always works it out, So basically, he said, what book do you want to print? Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John? And I was thinking Mark, and so we basically, that's what he had in mind. And so he said, I want to print over in America 500,000 and ship them to you. And I said, well, I'm a printer. That's what I do here. No, the churches want to work them up and get them to you. So we'll pay for it. We'll get them to you if you can get them out. So I said, okay, we'll get them out. So he sends over about 350,000 to start with, and we get them in. And I've got my lawyer friend and my pastor friend and my accountant, my secretary, and we're all there trying to receive these, and we're in big trouble, And so it's $30,000 tax and this and that.
Ooh, yeah.
Get
them through customs and all. Yeah.
So I just said, well, I told my lawyer friend, I said, can you just tell them that they can have them, that it's okay, they can have them. So anyhow, they came back and they worked it out. So it ended up being about $4,000 taxed, I said, okay, that's great. So anyhow, but meanwhile, this main pastor guy, that's a really great brother, he's really scolding me. He said, you can't have these will be in a warehouse forever. This is like a book for every family in the country. There's only 3 million people here. And he's like really getting on to me, and I'm kind of surprised. And I said, you're probably right, but we're going to try, they probably will sit in a warehouse some, but the Lord will help us. We're just going to trust the Lord and believe the Lord. And so anyhow, we get all these Bibles in, and then the next load we get's about 100,000. Yeah, the rest of them to hit 500,000.
You end up with about 500,000 Bibles or marks.
Yeah, we had 500,000. So this last time I've got a load of clay because I'm a potter, and it's bags of white powder dust, So they're sitting there on the container, and then the whole container's full of Bibles. So okay, all the police are there, everybody's there, and they think I've got this big load of cocaine, Because so, and it's 5:00. It's time for them to go home, and they're mad because they have to have it tested and this and that. And so, but I'm out there, I'm kind of sitting there, and I'm kind of playing around with those workers on the dock, and they're teasing each other and poking this guy and sitting there. And so after a little bit, my secretary goes out, and they're all there. And I said, well, can these other Mongolian guys take these books and go? Because they got a long way to drive. They said, yeah, take the books and go.
Oh, okay.
So they're
worried about the clay.
They were worried about the cocaine. So anyhow, the guy comes out, and they want to go home. And so all this big group of people comes up and says, okay, you can go. And I said, what happened? They said, well, they just said, you're just laughing and playing and acting happy. They just said it can't be drugs. Just tell the guy to leave.
There's no way this dude's a drug dealer.
Yeah. So anyhow, we get them all in, and then we start to passing them out in different villages, and we get a call from this big ministry that says, hey, can you print us about 300,000-400,000 book of marks, and we'll pay you? I said, yes, I can. I said, you don't have to pay me. You can tell me where to deliver them, and I'll deliver them tomorrow. And he said, our plan is we're going to send 1,000 teams to meet with 1,000 teams in Mongolia to hit every village, to try to hit every home in the country over the next 2 years.
Oh my goodness. And you had the Bibles already.
Yeah. So there's no way we could have done that. There's no way we knew about it, but we said, we'll do it. And trusting the Lord could do it. And he did it within a year,
Amazing.
So it's happening. It's happening now. So that's another little fun story in the printing.
Yeah.
So there's other stories like that. It's just fun, exciting things. But the thing is, when we started talking, I said something about patience, because I'm thinking through a podcast, and I'm thinking when you talk to a missionary, and like I'm hitting the highlights, the big things, big stories. But we're talking 18 years, and you've got some of that lifetime. So everybody, even if you live at home, and you're a believer, wherever, you have stories. But some young believers look at that and hear that, and they say, wow, this is happening for this guy every day. No, that's a few highlights in 18 years.
Sure. That's the highlight reel.
So there's a lot of patience. There's a lot of looking at the cross, trusting the Lord, the foundational truths, resting in my calling. When there's it's a long drawn out process, pioneer missions, and you don't see lots of fruit.
There's a lot of valleys between those mountaintops.
Yeah, it's like we're remodeling an old factory here to do youth camp, or we are doing youth camp,
and that's been a long time in the making. That old Soviet thing. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I feel like I was a teenager when you first started talking about that. Yeah.
You were. So that's what I'm trying to say. It takes a lot of patience, because you hear these highlights and you put that together as a life, but there's years of struggling and working and living and accidents, and you just realize you like the Lord, for the joy that's laid before him, you just know that there's a future, there's an end. This is a service. We're looking to the Lord. We're going to just keep going,
Yeah.
And because, wow, we've been translating a Sunday school curriculum for about 14 years.
Wow.
Now think about that.
Yeah.
With 78 volumes, but we're finished translating them, and we're finished printing all the black and white and almost all the color, and we're putting those together. But it's taken us over a year just to staple these, and we still aren't finished. But I'm just saying that's our goal. 20 years ago.
Yeah.
We're still working at it.
But you're just starting to realize, oh, man, that's good for me to hear, the patience thing, Mickey. I appreciate that, man. So you're basically, you're resting on what you know, what God's already shown you, what he's promised, and then you're just trusting that what, the burden he's given you or the vision he's given you, whatever, you're just trusting in his faithfulness to get you there. And then grinding every day.
You just work every day, and you just keep working, and you don't quit, and you have to have patience, and you must be resting in the future. We have a future in heaven. It's exciting, and this is just a little part of our eternity. Amen. And I just want to work hard and run well with it. And you have these things, and it looks glamorous and glorious, but it is just a lot of work. And just like it is for people back home, like it is for everybody. Sure. You just don't quit, and you keep going, and you rest in that calling. You have patience, you rest in, and I say rest in the calling, I mean as a whole, like you're calling unto salvation, you're calling to everything in life, especially your foundational truths, and you're calling for the future of heaven. And it's just this little tiny span of life. We've got to fulfill it, and we've got to run well. And
so it's focusing on the right things. So like Colossians 3, focus on things above. So when life gets hard down here, don't focus on that stuff. Focus up on what's to come, and just keep running. That's
because it is hard. It can be hard every day, and it's going to be lots of hardness. And it's kind of like, as a young person at 18 years old, 19 years old, I remember telling the Lord, I really want to do something for you, but Lord, I know I look at my family. My family's no good. Look at me. I'm not a good guy. I can't even read. I haven't read. I can't even read. At 18 years old, I never read a book, and I just could maybe read on the third grade level or less at 18 years old. And as I wanted the Lord to serve the Lord, and I wasn't at all thinking missionary. I think I'd have ran out the back door fast if I thought the Lord is going to. I'm the kind of guy that's sitting on the back row, but I wanted to live for the Lord with my heart. I wanted to be a prayer warrior. I wanted to just serve the Lord in the background. Yeah. I never planned on being a missionary, but then he really gave me some scriptures about, you see your calling, brother, not many wise, not many noble, not many mighty are called, but God has chosen the foolish, the base, and the Lord really, I think at 18 started calling me, dealing with me, working with me, preparing me. And basically just in my prayer life, and just in talking to my friends, and just talking to my sister and my mother, and just what was natural, talking to my pottery teacher, and that's how I wanted to serve the Lord. And that's really all serving the Lord is whether you're at home or in your church and receiving people, or you're on the mission field and receiving people and giving your testimony and telling them about the Lord. I just think we're believers, and we've got something to tell. We can, we have eternal life to tell about.
Amen.
We're ambassadors.
That's awesome. Mickey, this might be kind of a tough question. I don't mean to set you up with this, but just, as I'm listening to everything you're saying, and you've been on the field almost 20 years now. You went to the field later in life at 40. And so, if you were able to kind of like look back at the last 18, 20 years of your life since you got to the field, what has God showed you about himself? Like what have you learned about God, whether it's his provision, his character, whatever. What have you learned about God in the last 20 years of your life serving him on the foreign field? Whether, if it's one or two or three things. Is there anything that just jumps out at you that God has really taught you in the last 2 decades of serving in this capacity?
Honestly, I think that in a nutshell, this is it. I believe the Lord has taught me that, he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. I think that means to be current with him. Not that of course it means that he is alive, but that he is right here, right now, as we talk, as we pray. He's right there. You're not praying to a God that's far off. He is with us. If, like Moses, Lord, if you don't go before us or with us, we don't want to go. But he's with us on a daily basis. And I think that's what I keep falling back to when I walk out to go outside, or when I go to prayer. I recognize through life and through everything that he expects us, he wants us to quit talking to some God that's far off, that's far away, that's going to have this delayed reaction at some point, but he expects us to be current. He expects us to expect and realize that he is current with us right here, right now, at this moment. That's who he is. He is, I am that I am. I am right here, right now with you.
Amen.
I think that's what, because, I feel when I'm really if I spend hours in prayer or many days fasting, and boy, I'm with God. No, you're with God when you're not praying and fasting, I mean,
Amen.
There's times I feel close to God, and there's times, what matters is, what do you believe? Are you current with God? He's current with you. He that cometh to me must believe that I am right here, right now with you on the spot. So I think that's what I would say that he's dealing with me about through the years.
That's awesome. And then just to see that flesh out practically through trusting him on the field, because if he doesn't come through, it's just not going to happen. What about, so you said, there's times that God feels closer, obviously, but he's always with you. That's a good word. What did you ever find times on the field where you felt like God was distant or you were distant? You know what I mean? Like, what did you do? Like, because there are, mountaintops and valleys and.
That's a tough one, because when do you
shooting from the hip, man? I'm sorry.
I'm not the kind of guy that feels like I'm just current. I feel that's my desire. That's what I want. That's who I want to be. And I think that I'm learning as I get older to just decide to believe the word of God and just believe it. Here's what it says. Just go for it. Believe it. Rest in it. And I just realizing as I get older, wow, this such just decisions, we are so dependent, but you still have to be dependent. You have to make a decision to be dependent.
Oof. That's a good word.
It's like, it's major.
Wow.
And it's like, I remember, I don't know if this is in the subject, but this just popped in mind. When I first got here, maybe first 4 years, we didn't have a car or anything. And we'd always just get on the little Russian vans and drive to the next village, which was 3.5 hours away off road, and your roads are washed out and there's not really any roads. It's kind of through prairies, and you go through like 6 or 7 little mountain ranges before you get to that village. So basically I was I always try to take the lower seat. I'd never sit in the front or that. So I just happened to be sitting back in a little back compartment on the spare tire, and it was like difficult, and we was hitting bumps, and we dropped off this little ditch creek thing, and I hit the top of the roof with my head, cracked my neck, and I was like, I was just so miserable, and it was like, boy, just the realization hit me that, I'm with you to the ends of the earth. I was feeling at the ends of the earth,
Even when I'm in the back of a Russian minivan, cracking my head on the roof in Mongolia, you're with me.
And it's not like we could, there's no internet. If you wanted to make a phone, there's a landline. You go to the post office and wait in line and have your 2 or 3 minutes. It was one switchboard, one phone. And, it's like, yeah. So I don't know how I got off on that subject, except I was thinking about being current with the Lord and the fact that he's with us even to the ends of the earth. I mean, if you came from my home to Mongolia, it's absolutely the other side of the world,
Yeah,
from North Carolina.
Well, and I love that you picked that up or put that out there, because, Great Commission is ingrained in our heads since we're little kids if you grow up in a Christian family. But then when you go as a missionary and you get to the field and you reread the Great Commission, what sticks out to me more isn't the go ye therefore, because that's what stuck out to me when I was a teenager. Go, 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 go. You got to go. Yeah. We got to go to the ends of the world. You know what I mean? All of those things. But then when you get there, it's like, lo, I'm with you always. And that means so much more to me now than it did 5 years ago, because it does get hard, man. It just gets hard. And what a promise. Yeah. Thank God that he gave us that promise in the Great Commission. Because he knew we would need that little tidbit,
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so funny because when you get over in a place and the smells are different, the looks are different, everything is so different.
You don't understand a word they're saying to you.
Yeah, and it's like he's with you. It's just the same. It's like, I think that theme's been in this talk, like a worker is a missionary. Everybody's that's a believer is a believer. It's a missionary. I know we have our special callings and the Lord really sends us, but really we're doing the same thing that people are doing at home that understand what the Lord expects.
Sure.
And I didn't really want to say it like that. It's more like he's with you there. He's with me here. I'm a believer there. I'm a believer here. Now, we do have that office of a missionary, so I'm not belittling that.
Oh, no, I know what you're saying. We're all called to do a work, though, regardless of the location on the planet. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because, a lot of people, especially new believers or young believers, they really think the missionary's like this superhero guy. And it's kind of like, he chose the base guys, we're just.
There's a reason he chose us. He gets the most glory.
I mean, yeah, that's right. We know who gets the glory.
Oh, amen.
Because, it's just, we are the same people. We have to have our devotions. We have to deal with lust of the flesh, lust of the eye, pride of life. We have to confess. We have to pray. We have to, it's just the same thing.
Sure.
We're believers. We're over here. And it is I'll tell you, it's a great blessing to have this calling to be a missionary, to be, to get to leave your homeland and your comforts and to be in another place. It's, I don't know. I can't imagine being anything else. I think it's a great joy and privilege for my children to be raised on the mission field, and just to have this. I don't see myself as, I don't know, as anything different or special. I think it would be like this at home, but it's just when I'm over here, there's just this sense of calling, I don't know how to say it. It's a sense of, it's a pleasure, it's a joy, but yet it's so difficult.
Sure.
But yet for the joy that's set before us, it just doesn't matter, I think, if I'm at home or abroad or here or there, or happy or sad or hungry or full. I don't know. He's with us. He's current. He's with us to the ends of the earth. And I just think I'm so glad I didn't miss this. It's very exciting, but I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this.
No, man, that'll preach, man. I was just gonna say, just preach, man. Keep going. Let's do this, because we do probably need to wind down. I don't know. I think you could probably go for 2-3 hours and people will keep listening. I would. But this is probably a good place to start to tie a bow on it, because you started talking about young people, and I know you went to the field at 40, so this doesn't have to be directed at young people specifically, but I know that I was in my late teens, early 20s when I was really getting interested in missions, and those are typically the age group of people that have the most free time, and they're starting to decide, what am I going to do with my life? What do you have to say to the young people out there? You've been on the field for almost 20 years now. You've spent a large chunk of your adult life serving the Lord on the mission field. If you were going to give not even advice, maybe a plea, I beseech you now, therefore, brethren, I'm pleading with you, young people in Laodicea, where the world wants to tell you to, pursue the things of this world, pursue the riches of this world, pursue fame, fortune, the American dream, whatever. How would you plead with them to don't pursue those things, but pursue to be used by the Lord to serve the Lord with your life?
What pops into mind was my Sunday school teacher. His name was Rand Hummel. He worked at the Wiles Christian Camp, and he has a camp in New England. But he was my Sunday school teacher when I was 18. And I remember one time him saying, you need to, I don't remember exactly how he said it, but he said, you need to recognize and realize that God wants the best for your life, that he will give you the best, and that he will give you the desires of your heart. And he said, if you would just go for the Lord, give your heart to the Lord. He was talking about marriage and finding your mate. We were all teenagers, and he said,
that's a big concern. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very concerning. And he just really he said, you won't miss God's will, just give your heart to the Lord, trust the Lord. And he wants the best for you. He wants to fulfill you and excite you and give you the desires of your heart. And I don't know, I just bought into that, at 18. And I just thought, I want the Lord. I have realized at a young age that the way to really, this sounds so wrong, the way to really have what I want, because I just wanted to be, I don't know, I was the kind of guy, like after graduation, we drove to Canada and camped out on the island for 3 or 4 months, and just canoed around all these channels. And I've always been this kind of guy. And I just didn't know what I wanted, but wanted to be all out, and just wanted to be honest and serious, and had big plans. I want the right wife. I told you the testimony last time about getting a wife. Really,
if you guys didn't hear the first episode, Mickey explaining praying for Trina is what you got.
Wanted real specifics,
real specific stuff.
Just crying out to the Lord. And man, he's really given me the desires of my heart. But it all started when I was a teenager and just not decide. I remember going to a revival meeting. This guy was preaching on hell, and just the reality of hell kind of shook me into the reality of, I need to just serve the Lord, get right with God. I mean, this life will be over with. I'll be at the end of my life, and hell is real, and God is real, and heaven is real. I just need to go for the Lord. It just hit me so hard, and I just did. And, I just remember going home. I had an old 55 Chevy, I think I was fixing, sanding down, trying to get ready to paint and this and that. And I just remember walking over to the refrigerator in the garage and getting the beer and just pouring it out. I started drinking. I thought, I just poured it out. And then I just remember telling my girlfriend, I'm going to, change my ways. I'm going to follow the Lord and really go for the Lord. And I just remember I had all this crazy just stuff I just got rid of, and anyhow, so she dumped me, my girlfriend dumped me, and I just went for the
So
Lord.
it's
And
just a
it's
decision. You're just like, you know what?
it's a
I'm going to do
decision.
this thing for real. No playing around.
But it's a decision for eternity. It's the realization of God. I mean, now I can say this. I probably couldn't say that, but God is current. Eternity is stepping into the rest of eternity. I always feel like, when you graduate, when you die from this life, when you graduate from this life, it's like graduating from high school. You step into this other world. You don't have to go to school anymore. You finish school as far as your high school. And so it's heaven. When you step into heaven, it's like you finish this earth time, but there's so much that you learned in school. There's so much that you learn and so much treasure that you can lay up in heaven. And so I've always dreaded the thoughts of standing before the Lord, and just that appointment and that dread and that fear that I don't want to disappoint him. I don't want to fall short all the time. I don't know how to even
Man, you know what's funny,
that.
Mickey? I don't really want to hijack the story time with Mickey with my stories, but my son is 3 now, and boy, he has just been a handful since he was born, man. Big personalities. I think the Lord wants to do stuff with him. I just gotta
I have one of those.
figure out how to. Was it your Judah? Was he the handful too?
It was.
Oh,
my firstborn.
It's something about Judahs, man. They're a handful, but. I tell you what though, he's ornery and gets in trouble all the time, but as he's getting older and his personality's coming out, you see when he understands he did wrong, and he gets repentant, and it's so good to see that he's starting to understand right from wrong, and but he started doing this thing whenever he would get in trouble, just to try and get out of trouble. He would start crying because he knew it was coming. He knew he was in trouble, and he would start crying and say, "I just want to make you so happy." And it was not. He figured out that if he can turn on the cute and try and get out of trouble, I don't know what it came from. I think Brooks said he's got this book that the parents are, I don't know, a potty training book or something, and so he just stole something from a book where he saw the kid making his parents happy, and so he started doing this to try and get out of trouble. And I'm just like, boy, that ain't gonna work, man. You already committed the crime.
Exactly right.
He's trying to play the cute card, but you know what? Like I realized the other day, just that little line that because with COVID and everything. I don't know about you, Mickey. I've been trying to ask every missionary at the end of our interviews in this season, has COVID changed your strategy at all, or your time with the Lord? Just because I feel like a lot of Christians have gotten more urgency recently, because oh man, maybe the Lord could come back anytime. Maybe this is the end times, and we're staring down just a couple of years out or sooner. And I feel my urgency being, but in my strategy and my prayer time, I just have felt like, Lord, I just want to get to the judgment seat. I just want to make you happy. Like in all seriousness, you're my heavenly Father, and I know I got to the field, and I'm not trying to get out of punishment like my son is. But in all sincerity, maybe 20-year-old Kale would have said, "Oh, I want to go to the field and start this size of a church and this ministry," and it's like, no, man. Now that I'm here, and we, the signs of the times and all that. I just want to make him happy. I just want to get to the judgment seat and have my dad say, and just be able to tell him, I tried. This is what you told me to do, and I tried, and I just hope you're happy. I just want to make you proud.
I hear you.
But let me ask you that though, and we'll end it here, we're going way long, but this is good. I don't care. Has COVID and this reality, is that in Mongolia or in your personal walk or strategy with missions, has anything changed? Have you felt more urgency, or are you just keeping your nose to the grindstone and looking up and waiting on the Lord?
I'm funny in that way. I'm a funny kind of guy, because it's like, I remember when I came home from Mongolia the other, I don't know, 10 months ago or whenever it was, and I was preaching somewhere, and everybody's so tore up, and I said, I don't know what it is. I'm worried that I'm just not worried about nothing. I said, it worries me that I don't worry about nothing. So I don't know why I'm not more worried about COVID or anything. I just, but it does change you. It's changed, the way, especially back to the church, we finally, after years of mentioning impatience, we finally got a God-called pastor here at our church in Hotco. So we're very thrilled about that. And so soon as he got in, back when COVID first started,
Of course.
they shut us down. And so he's been doing the online thing in our little tiny village, and it's been interesting. So yeah, a lot of things changed here in our village. It's really tight here. There's no, Mongolia, I don't know if they was the first country to shut their borders and lock down.
Really?
And they didn't have COVID for a long time. Now this flooding in here is starting to happen. So anyhow, yeah, it changes. It changes my thinking, and it's but I say that, but I don't know if I believe that because it's like I don't know. It's like with Jonah's accident, or with my dad dying, or the different things that happen in life. It's kind of like, the Lord's with us, and this is, I don't know. It seems like nothing affects me like that very much. I don't know why, but I'm excited. I don't want to be numb to it, but I just think that it goes with the flow. These things happen. And it's so interesting to see how fearful people are, and how it changes their thinking and their not their theology, but
there's practical decision making, and their outlook.
Yes.
Yeah, you're absolutely.
It's just too much. It's like, yeah,
Be real.
But
though,
I do
Mickey.
believe.
You think he's coming soon? Next year.
I believe
you're going to set a date. When's he coming?
The Lord has been coming for 2,000 years. I believe. I'm always thinking like that. I'm always thinking he's fixing to come back any moment, because I think he is. When I was young, my dad was in the military, and he'd go away for a year at a time.
Oh, wow.
And he'd leave me this major list of things to do: paint the barn roof, fix this, reorder that. I had all this major list. And when he came home, I had that list done, but my life was living to fulfill that list when he would go away. And I always feel like that in my life with the Lord, like he's given us a list, and we're trying to fulfill that list before he gets here. And I just think he's coming sooner than later. I'm sure he's coming. But the thing that I know, whether he comes now or later, I don't care. It's just he's coming. I have an appointment. It's like when you have a dentist appointment. It's appointed unto man wants to die, and then the judgment. We have an appointment. It's written down somewhere, and it is like
it's coming.
It's reality.
So
I am literally going to stand before my Maker, eye to eye, face to face, and Lord have mercy. It's exciting and fearful.
Sure. So maybe these Laodicean Christians, that are worried, just need to start living in light of what they say they believe.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it sounds like that's why you're not worried, Mickey. You're just living in light of what you believe.
I want to. Amen. We want to. But it's so easy to be numb, to numb down, to dumb down, and to get in the flow. I remember telling another missionary, this has been some years ago, I said, it's Friday night. It's our pizza night. I was confessing to him. I said, we're going to watch a movie tonight because we were in the city. We're going to make a pizza or buy a pizza. And I said, it's funny because I wasn't really wanting to pray. It was like 4:00, and I was talking to the Lord, and I just felt like I didn't want to say, Lord, is there anything else you want me to do? Because I want to watch a movie and eat pizza. And I was afraid he was going to make me do something else. But I don't know. He's current. He's right here. He's real. But I guess what I was saying there is so easy to just really want to do our own thing and please ourselves and our flesh. And we better look at eternity and the judgment seat of Christ is a real thing. And all of eternity ruling and reigning with Christ, And then, it goes on and on, I'm not a real big on we can earn our rank down here, for the millennium, but I'm afraid the Lord is. I think
Yeah.
he's big on it.
Do you think he's given us a chance? Maybe any of us down here, Laodicean lazy Christians, maybe a wake up call, giving us one more chance to lay up some treasures in heaven.
Oh my soul, you know it. Anytime these things happen, we should be shaken, not fearful and anxiety, but we should be shaken. Now COVID has shaken me in that way.
Wake up, church, wake up.
Yes, because I'm the kind of guy I need to be woke up.
Yeah,
I get numb and in a routine, and I need to be. COVID has shaken me up.
Same. Well, Mickey, this has been great. I know I went too long here, but it's just a joy to talk to you every time. And any last things you want to say to anyone who's listening? Just because, and anything you say always ends up being gold. But before we sign off here,
I think we need patience. It's maturity. We need to be patient with where we're at, and just move forward. Keep going. Just keep heading toward the end, and realize, there's a beginning and there's an end, and we have an appointed time to be finished here. And we just need to keep moving forward.
Keep pressing towards the mark.
Yeah. Don't turn.
Amen.
Don't turn. Don't yield. Don't turn to the left or right. Just keep moving forward toward him, crying out to him.
Race is almost over. Don't give up now, right? Like we're almost there.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Mickey, thank you so much, brother. This was super encouraging. I appreciate you. I love you. Praying for your ministry. Thanks again.
Amen, brother. Thank you for having us on. The Lord's good.
Man, well, there you go. Just another episode with Mickey Cofer. And, you guys know, I'm not trying to talk Mickey up and, because, putting him on a pedestal or anything like that. But there are just some men of God that when they speak, there's just so much truth and so much grace and so much wisdom that you just got to sit and listen. And so I know that this went super long. I'm sorry about that, but I'm sure if you guys had heard the first episode with Mickey, I'm sure that you don't mind that it was long. But man, just at the end there, what Mickey was saying about just believe what God says. Just choose to be all in and just choose to live for the Lord. It's so profound, but so simple at the same time. So young people, if you're listening to this, we're almost at the end of this season. Next week is the season finale of Missionary Roundtable. If you're listening to this and you're thinking about serving the Lord with your life, but man, the world, there's a lot of temptations out there. The lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, pride of life, fame, fortune, the American dream. All of those things are temptations that could cause you to draw away from the Lord and seeking His will for your life and just doing what you think seems to be the best for your life. Can I just encourage you to look at the life of Mickey Cofer, a man who gave all that up and said, I'm gonna be all about the Lord. I'm going to do this thing for real. I'm going to lay up for myself treasures in heaven, and I'm going to do what He has called Christians to do. And He is telling you 20 years into being a missionary that it's worth it. It's worth all the hardships. It's worth everything, all the sacrifices. It's worth it. He loves it. You could tell the joy in his voice that he wasn't making it up. He wasn't trying to tell you that, he wasn't trying to pretend or feign any sort of spirituality. He genuinely meant that it's a joy to serve the Lord in this capacity. And I agree, it is. And it may be super hard, but it's worth it, guys. So man, could I just encourage you, if you're listening, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to move to another country. Maybe it is. I would love to see more people called by the Lord to be missionaries and trust the Lord with that, with their life. But whatever it is that God is asking you to do right now, today, to trust Him, would you do that? Would you just make the decision, like Mickey said, just decide, I'm going to be all in. I'm going to do this for real. I'm going to give the Lord my whole life. And I'm not going to seek my own pleasures, my own desires. I'm going to seek the Lord, and I'm going to seek to obey Him and the Great Commission. And wherever that takes me in the world, whether that's just next door to my next door neighbor to reach them with the gospel, or across the world to Mongolia, I'm going to obey the Lord with every step of my life, then it really doesn't matter, guys, if Jesus comes back tomorrow or in 5 years or whenever, because you're just going to be about your Father's business until the day he comes back. And man, that was, I don't mean to ramble on after all that, because I think Mickey said everything there needs to be said, but it was just so encouraging to me. And I hope it was encouraging to you. Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Missionary Roundtable. Make sure you tune back in next Wednesday for the season finale, the last episode of season 2. It's going to be a treat. I'm telling you right now, it's different than anything we've ever done on this show. It's different than all the episodes that we've done in the past 2 seasons. I think you're really going to enjoy it, and I think it's going to be really encouraging for you. So make sure you come back, same time, same place next week. We'll see you then. God bless.
Thanks for listening. Please rate and subscribe and share us on social media. Also, please make sure to check out our other podcast, Theology Roundtable, at theologyroundtable.com.